know, a presentation that works beautifully at home can fall completely flat the moment you cross a border. And on today's show, we're exploring what speakers need to understand when they present in other countries, from language and culture to stories, humor, and the unspoken rules that shape audience connection. And we've got a guest who spent years navigating stages far beyond his home turf, learning firsthand how small adjustments can mean the difference between respectful engagement and unintended consequences. You ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Alan Berg, is the author of 13 books with number 14 on the way. He's presented in 14 countries, 5 in Spanish, and once in French. And he's one of only 46 global speaking fellows in the world. I'm going to let him take it from here because he'll do a better job of telling you his journey than I will. Welcome to the show, Alan. The floor is yours. Get us up to speed on you.
Thanks, Rob. I started speaking because I was trying to keep my advertisers in my wedding magazine from canceling because they were lousy business people. So I would teach them better business and then they would advertise. That's the short story on that. And then I ended up with a company called The Knot. Some people might know TheKnot.com was the largest wedding website in the world. And when I was hired as a sales director, the VP of sales sent me out to speak at something. And then for 11 years, and I became VP of sales, I was the main speaker. I did not identify as a speaker until I got off stage in Montreal one time and somebody said, Alan, you're a great speaker. That was a great speech. Or you're a member of the National Speakers Association. And I said, what's that and why should I care? And they said, look it up. And I looked it up and I was able to join. And I said, really, I guess I'm a professional speaker. I didn't know that because you had to be one at the time. So I was speaking as part of my job, but I didn't identify as a speaker, even though I was speaking more than a lot of people. In 2011, I got downsized, best thing that ever happened to me. And I started speaking more and getting invited to speak in other countries. And it really has been an interesting journey because the first time I spoke internationally was in Barbados. And I took all the cultural references out of my speech and I said, oh, they can't have any of this. I get to my hotel, turn on the TV, and it's the New York City TV stations. So like they know everything. They know the same TV shows, the same movies and all that. But going to different countries and asking people before I get there, my speaker community, what do I need to know? Is it safe? Where do I go? What do I say? What do I not say? What do you avoid? And that's been the real interesting part of the journey. And I didn't consciously say I want to go present in other languages when I started learning Spanish. I just wanted to be respectful when I went to Mexico, that I wasn't the arrogant American that just expects everybody to speak English wherever you go.
Yeah. I think a lot of us kind of fall into that unconscious incompetency category, meaning we don't know what we don't know. We'll figure it out. I mean, I think my first big trip was to Cairo, and I used to love to give golf analogies and things like that, and I learned real quickly about my slang and my speed and things like that. What do you think is one of the first things that speakers tend to underestimate when they get that first exciting call to say, we want you to speak in, Brussels, wherever it is?
Right. So a great book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, which is this big, thick book, talks about every country and the culture and the history and the currency and some of these cultural things, right? Like, what do you need to know? Do you immediately talk about business or is that considered rude, right? Like if you go to Brazil, that's considered rude. If you show up on time to a social event in Brazil, you are rude, right? You're supposed to be an hour late. Like you show up on time, they're still setting up, right? Whereas here, it's like show up on time. It's rude to show up late. You have to understand that. What I've found is if the people are fluent in English, that is their first language, they are speaking that in their business and stuff, I don't have to change much in my pace because I've already slowed it down. And that's because I grew up in New York City and we talk fast. That's what we do. And years ago, I was in Texas and somebody said, Alan, you don't have to talk so fast. And I didn't think I was talking fast because everybody I knew spoke just as fast. So it's just being conscious of that. So just let's first talk about just speaking in English in another country. If they understand it very well, I don't change really much about the pace of what I talk. I do watch references. I remember speaking in Ireland and I talk about sales. So I talk about getting inquiries. And we here in the US say INQU, inquiry. And somebody pulled me over after my talk and said, We know what you're talking about. But over here, we say enquiry, ENQU, because an inquiry here with an I is considered a criminal investigation. I said, Oh, and you don't want more of those, huh? And they go, No, we don't want more of those. So little things like that. Every time I go international, I do a find and replace in my slide deck, find INQU, change it to ENQU, nice and easy fix. If there's an example of a phone number, I find how they write their phone number, their country code, their area code, whatever they call it over there, do that. There's a web address. Is it going to end in .com or .co.uk or .ie or .ae or whatever it is? Some of this they won't notice that you've done it, but they would notice if you didn't.
Hmm.
And actually, I was having this conversation earlier on my podcast with someone. We don't get credit for getting it right sometimes, but we do lose points for getting it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That is actually, it's almost like a slogan.
yeah,
That's a great point to remember. And I appreciate that. Give me that book again, the book title that you were talking about.
kiss, bow, or shake hands.
Right.
So, again, you went to Cairo. So,
Right.
you're dealing with people there that could be Muslim,
Right.
right? And a Muslim woman who's wearing a hijab. I would never extend my hand to shake her hand because she probably wouldn't shake my hand, very much like an Orthodox Jewish woman or something wouldn't do that. But what I learned is I take my hand and I put it over my heart. So when I meet someone, I put my hand on my heart and I do it just a very slight lean in, right? Very nice to meet you. If they extend their hand, I'll shake their hand.
Right.
But I've years ago I had been in a situation where I was actually selling and some Orthodox Jewish people, and you extend your hand to an Orthodox Jewish woman and your hand is hanging because she's not going to shake your hand. And the same thing with a woman with a hijab. It's like, okay, I learned that. I've spoken in Dubai 4 times, and there are people there. There were women there with hijabs. There were women there in Western clothing. But everybody I walk up to, hand on my heart, nice to meet you,
Right.
right? Right. And just react to them. Business card. We hand someone a business card. One hand, hand them a business card. Oh, no, no, no. Two hands. Two hands, hand the business card. They give you a business card. You look at it. You don't just put it in your pocket. You look at it. You turn it over. You examine it. And then you look at them and then you put it away.
Is that
Right.
universal in every country or?
I think it's a universal, just a respect thing.
Right.
You hand me your card and I put it away. I actually tell people because I do marketing, I don't make other people's stuff. If you hand someone a business card and they put it away, they take a quick look and put it away. There was nothing unique about it.
Right.
So
Oh,
can you make something unique about it that they're going to want to look at it? But when someone hands me a card, they're giving me a piece of themselves. They're giving me a piece of their business. So I take their card, I look at it, I turn it over, and sometimes I have to say my internal voice is like, "This is an ugly, ugly card,"
right.
but I don't say that. I just take it, turn it over, thank you, and then I put it away.
It's
Right?
interesting. Alan, riddle me this. How is speaking in another country fundamentally different from speaking to a diverse audience in this country?
That's the fun thing that I found is that it really isn't that much different.
Oh,
It really isn't. Just understand your audience and know who it is. Now, I'm in a very narrow niche. Over 90% of what I do is in the wedding and event industry. So the people I'm dealing with are between Gen Z and baby boomers who are doing weddings and events, corporate events, weddings, social events, mitzvahs, quinceas, whatever. And I look at an audience and I'll have South Asians and I'll have African Americans and I'll have people from the North and the South and wherever. Speaking at a conference next week, and there'll be 4,000 people there. And there are people coming from other countries, mostly US, but from other countries. And it's again trying to make everyone feel included. And one of the ways I do that is in the imagery in my presentations. I'm using a lot of AI for imagery now, which is wonderful. But even before that, I bought images. I didn't steal images from online. I bought images. But now with AI, I use Gemini's Nano Banana, and I'll say, I need an image of this. And I need it to be ethnically diverse and body type diverse. Right. So not just ethnically diverse, but I don't want them to be all just tall, beautiful people. I want it to reflect what's there. And subtly, when a slide comes up and there's someone who's not thin and who's not white, everybody in the audience who is not thin or not white is like, oh, I'm included now. They may not say it, but remember, losing points for getting it wrong, not necessarily getting points for getting it right.
Right.
Just like including the conference's logo every time I do a presentation, I ask them for their logo and their social handles. And on the bottom of my slides, it's got their logo, my social handle, their social handle. And I've had people comment to me, oh, thank you. Thank you. It doesn't feel like a generic slide. And if you use Keynote or PowerPoint, just change the master slide and it goes on every slide. It's right there on every one of them. So that's another way to make people feel included. The people that brought you in, make them feel included as well because you're putting their logo, you're putting their social handle, and other people are putting up the same slide they're using everywhere else.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really enjoying about our conversation, Alan, is the fact that it is hitting home to me that I don't have to go to Cairo to learn from what you're speaking about because all our audiences at this point are pretty diverse.
Yeah.
These are just really good pointers, no matter where we're speaking.
Yeah.
How about this? All right, Mr. Perfect. Let's share a story or an analogy or maybe a bit of humor that didn't land the right way for you. And if you want, I'll swap with you because I've had a couple, just names. I'll throw one at you, which is
Yeah.
just small but not doing the homework that you were speaking about and
Hmm.
not really working on pronunciations and things. I I was learning people's names, and one person's name, I'm going to say it wrong at first, looked to me when he said it was Mahmoud.
Hmm.
And he said, he sort of winced. And he went, okay. And I went, well, no. He said, well, it's Mahmoud. And it was
Mahmoud.
a sound that we don't
Right.
typically make in our
Hmm.
language. And he said, but it's okay because you don't make that sound and you really won't learn it.
Right.
And I went back to my hotel room because this was a 4-day workshop. And I was like, I'm going to get that Mahmoud piece
Right.
down. But it reminded me how he was so happy when I
Hmm.
nailed his name in the morning. So
Yeah.
there was an example for me at least where
Yeah.
got it wrong, but then got it right. Let
Right.
me hear maybe
All
a
right.
little earlier, Alan, circa.
Well, no, no, actually, maybe not that early, maybe a couple of years ago. We again, cultural references and things. So reflecting our audience is not just their ethnicity, but it's also their age,
Mhm.
right? And I've been in my industry over 30 years. And 30 years ago, a lot of the people I was looking at were my age. And I'm still looking at people my age, but I'm also looking at people that are 30 years younger because they're new to the industry, right? So music, movies, TV. When we were kids, I'm going to go on a limb here. When we were kids, and you had 7 channels or 9 channels on the TV, we went to school the next day, and all of our friends watched the same show. Right now, people talk about a show or a movie. I'm like, never heard of it. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, so picture this. I'm going to be speaking. I'm speaking to a little bit over 1,000 wedding and event DJs and photo booth operators. And I was doing a presentation on pricing called You Down with OPP, right? Which, if you don't know, that is a song by Naughty by Nature, You Down with OPP, which that stands for other people's property, but I said it as it's obsessively pricing for profits. And I said that, it said that in the slide. So I said to the DJ that was going to play music for me to walk on, I said, do you have this song? He said, oh, yeah, absolutely. I have this song. I said, great. Play the song. Keep playing it when I'm on stage. I'll tell you when to cut. Great. Get up on stage, the music's playing, you can see people moving in the audience. Go. I tell them to stop. I let a little pregnant pause. I say to these 1,100, 1,200 people, I said, you down with OPP? And I got a call back, 1,200 people. Yeah, you know me, right? Cool. All right. Another conference in the States, caterers, same reaction. About a month later, I'm in Ireland. I say to the DJ, do you have the song? Yes. Great. Only about 100 people, maybe a little bit more. No stage, just standing there with them. Song plays, stops it. I said, you down with OPP? That's what I heard.
Ooh.
Absolutely nothing. The DJ couldn't even give me a yeah, you know me. And he knew this song. I'm looking at him like, you're just leaving me hanging here. And there's this, wow, and it feels like forever, but it's not because I just start presenting. It's like, okay, there you go. So, important lesson.
Right.
Because the first time, again, 12, you can imagine this, right? 1,200 people calling back, right? Because you do a call back, you say something, you get the audience, yeah, you know me. It was like, wow, there was this roar of, yeah, you know me. Oh, wow, it just feel great, right? Did it again, feel great. And then I got nothing. I'm not one person, nobody, just crickets. Don't do that. I also saw another speaker one time. Game of Thrones was big, and I had never seen it. And she's up on stage and she goes, "Where are my White Walkers?"
Oh boy.
Right? A
Yeah.
third of the audience knew what she was talking about, and two-thirds of the audience had no idea. And she said, "Where are my White Walkers?" Which, if you don't know what she's talking about, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa. So these are the kind of things where maybe stay away from. So now if I'm speaking, I'll go to people in that I know in the area that are going to be coming and I'll say different ages. Hey, do you know this song? You guys familiar with this? I go to the UK. I'm a member of the Professional Speakers Association of the UK and Ireland as well. I was voluntold I was performing at their cabaret night. And the year before, I had been voluntold, so I was voluntold again, and I wanted to do a medley of songs. I was like, "Do you know these songs? Like, I want you singing along. Do you know these songs?" And they'll, "Oh, yeah, 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 we know those songs." Okay, cool, cool. Because again, the music is pretty universal, but that was more of an age thing. These people knew the songs because they were all in kind of their 40s and 50s, right? Here I had an audience in Ireland that was all different ages, but they never heard that song, which I
Yeah.
was shocked because to me, I'm thinking, this is a big song. This was worldwide.
Yeah.
No, our world, the world that we know. And that's it. We have a world view that is skewed. It is
Right.
very skewed. You go outside the country, the way they see the US, the way we see the US, not getting into politics, especially now, is very different. And that was my big one. My big crickets moment, like I blew that.
Well, the good news is, you may have an audience that didn't connect to it, but I don't think you insulted the audience.
Not with that. No,
No,
no.
not that time. Okay.
White Walkers. She might have insulted
That,
some people
yes,
with
that's the one
White
that
Walk.
caught my ear.
Yeah, yeah.
Even I've heard speakers just curse because that's
Mm.
their style or whatever. And
Yeah.
you can get away with that for just so long. But you can have
And
that
where? And where?
exactly,
Right?
exactly,
Am I going to do that in Dubai?
right,
No, 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 no. I'm not going to do that in Dubai. Right? These are that's the thing is again knowing your audience because you get somebody like Gary V where the F word is punctuation,
right,
right? There's no purpose to it other than it's a comma
right.
for him. I have trouble listening to him because it gets in the way.
Yeah,
If you have a document and you bold every word in the document, nothing has emphasis.
right.
But if there's a word that's bolded and nothing else is, that word stands out. And that's the way, if you're going to use a word that's unexpected,
Yeah,
you use it sparingly. And
right.
that's where you get the effect.
Right. Yeah, I'll throw a quick slogan back at you because you gave me a good one already. I learned early on, emphasize everything, emphasize nothing. And
Mhm.
so, and that's not even the way we're punching words up. It's trying to, it's how we're using our visuals. It's everything we support that presentation to. Everything can't be the most important thing you're going to learn today.
Right.
That said, I don't get into this one isn't quite as important as the other one. I just don't necessarily put a star by it. Okay.
Well, but we do that as speakers in different ways. We do
Right.
that by the pace of our speaking. We do
Mhm.
that by the volume of our speaking. We do that with our body language. And that's something that I teach people that are asking me, "Hey, can you give me help? I want to speak more. What do I do?" I said, "Okay." I actually had a friend of mine just told me this. He said, I brought somebody to see you speak back in November. And I told him, watch Alan move on stage. He said, listen to what he's saying. It's good stuff. He said, but pay particular attention to how he moves and how he looks at the audience and how he calls out people in the back and in the middle and whatever, not just in the front. And this friend of mine, he noticed that. He said, realize what made one of the things that makes you so different than other people that I see speak is how you're inclusive. And I probably called him out once by name. And what I do before I go speak, I'm looking at the audience. Oh, so his name is Bo. It's like, okay, Bo is back corner. And sometimes the lights are so bright you can't even see. But I'm on stage, I'll be talking, I say, yeah, and I was talking to Bo before. I can't see him.
Right.
Right. And sometimes I can, but sometimes I can't. And even if he moved,
Right.
nobody else knows because they probably don't know him anyway. And he remembered that. And he was telling his friend, you watch the way he includes the audience with his body, with his words. It's not just him speaking. He's not standing in the stage. I've made stuff move. I've made people move stuff on stages. I said, that's going to be in my way. I need to walk here. You have to move those flowers back so I can walk in front of them, not behind them. You have to move those chairs and podiums. Oh, don't get me started with the podium. Why there's a podium on any stage these days, I don't understand. Because if you're putting somebody on your stage, they shouldn't need to stand behind a podium.
Well, Alan, the reason why you're seeing those podiums is usually they'll bring in an Alan or a Rob, but they've also got the head of HR and
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
compliance or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're not pros. And you and I would love to wrestle that lectern or podium away from them,
Yeah.
but your point is made. That doesn't mean we go behind it. I have to tell you, I look at the glass half full. I'm kind of glad it's there. I'm thrilled when other people are using it because, as far as I'm concerned, I got an audience that's been in the desert dying for a drink of water, okay, which is called movement.
Right.
And
Right.
here we go. If everybody's moving before me, I'm happy, but there's not going to be a whole lot of shock value when I start moving.
Right.
So
Right.
that's my half full version of the infamous
Right. There
lectern.
you go.
Uh,
Now,
yeah.
now, I don't know if you speak at all about working with a translator, because
Well,
that's something.
let's talk about it. I've worked with them before and I haven't done as well, so I'd love to hear some tips on that one.
So, first time I was speaking with whether it was going to be a translator, and it was going to be with the earpieces, because there's two kinds of translation. They have the earpiece and they're hearing simultaneously what you're saying in their language, and then there's the I speak, stop, the translator speaks, stop, which I absolutely hate. But the first time I was doing it, there was a booth in the back. They had earpieces, and what I did is I stood by the translator while somebody else was on stage, and is really amazing what they're doing because they're listening, they're understanding what that person is saying, they're translating it, and they're speaking while they're listening to the next thing that
Mhm.
somebody is saying, right? Really think about how hard that must be. But I watch them and I'm listening, and because I do speak at the time a little bit of Spanish, I realized they're summarizing. And I actually spoke to one of the translators, and they said, "No, we're not saying everything that's being said. We're summarizing." Because they're speaking too fast, so they're just giving you the gist. And it's kind of like, I guess, with American Sign Language is it's symbols that are representing things. It's not exactly literal unless they're spelling it out. So what I did is I cut down my presentation to be a little shorter so I could speak slower. And when there was a very important point, I spoke it and I stopped. And I could hear through the earpiece, you heard a little bit of something. And then when the translator stopped, then I started up again. Because if the point was that important, I don't want them summarizing it. I want them saying it. So I gave them a chance to actually say what I said there. And then after I spoke, I went back to the translator and I said, because I asked how the other person said, she spoke really fast. I said, "How did I do?" She said, "Thank you." She said, "No, that was great." I gave them time to process it. So if you're going to speak with a translator, simultaneous translation, shorten your presentation, simplify the wording, stay away from, well, sarcasm for sure. Humor doesn't necessarily translate either. And if you're speaking with the simultaneous, not the simultaneous, the synchronous, I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak, try to avoid it if you can. But the same thing, the flow is gone, right? Because I'm constantly moving. I'm flitting around the stage, not annoyingly. I'm moving. I will stop over here. I will stop over here. I will look over here. I'm not just like boom, bing, 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 bing. But with the translator, I avoid that if at all possible. It's not why I learned to speak in Spanish, but now that I do present in Spanish, I would rather do that and not do it perfectly than have to speak and stop and speak and stop and speak and stop.
Right. Now, I've been on the speak and stop stages, and it's tough, real tough, particularly for a guy who's fairly animated like I am. I will tell you that, be it right or wrong, maybe you can say, "Ooh, Rob, you might not want to do that so much." but I find myself actually slowing down and becoming a lot more physical, a lot more facial. So what
Yeah.
my body is saying is making me a deal in a sense. I'll let you slow down if you compensate by almost miming what
Hmm.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And that worked for me, but I didn't realize I was doing it until the first time I finished, and my body was sore like I had been working out. Why are my shoulders sore? Because I was twisting and moving. Anyhow, it worked for me. I'm curious from your end, and I mean, you touched on it, but I kind of want to go back to it, and that is sometimes when we're speaking to an international audience, and we're not up on the local customs as much. So you were
Mhm.
talking about shaking the hands and things like that. I love the book. Is there a shortcut? Let's say I got somebody who's listening right now who's not going to get the book.
Mhm.
Actually, I am going to go get that book.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you to repeat it because I would write it down. I didn't know it existed,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering in terms of some of those customs.
Yeah. I think you could use AI now easily for that. You can go in and you can, and I would use more than one AI
Yeah,
because you want to get confirmation. I would probably use maybe Perplexity for that because it's great for research and it'll give you the links so you can go find out where that stuff is. But you can find out, things about the local culture and things, talking to people of different age, different sex, in other languages, like I'm doing French now. There's the informal and the formal you, right? Same thing in Spanish, the formal, informal. So if you're speaking to a child, it's informal, no matter whether you know them or not. But if you're speaking to an adult, it's formal unless you're given the permission or you understand the situation. It's okay to be a little bit more informal. So things like that. Understanding what's going on in politics. If you're going place, you want to know what's going on. I was in the UK, they're all talking. This was last October. They're talking about what's going on here, but also what was going on there was a big election, and there were things going on. So it's like, hey, what's going on? I'm talking to people. What's happening here? Or in Ireland, that has their was it the president and the prime minister? I think it's the prime minister is openly gay. That's a big deal in a country like that. It's a big deal in a country like that, but that's important to understand. Um, Talk again in my industry, weddings. Do I talk about same-sex marriage?
right,
Right? I could talk about it here because it's legal, but I wouldn't talk about that in Dubai, right? And you want to know that, going into the places, is it okay to bring that up or not?
right,
Because here, trying to be inclusive, my language, my slides, my things will be inclusive to, like I said, all those things. So it's LGBTQAI plus, body type, race, religion, all these things. Well, I'm going to scrub some of that if I'm going someplace where same-sex marriage is illegal,
right,
right? Not going to talk about that. They don't want to know that. And my images, again, make it look like the people that are there.
right.
So I change the images. Now, and I get it. When I'm talking to audiences, I go some parts of the US where there's a lot of white people. So my images might lean more that way. And then I go where there's a lot of people of color and they're going to lean that way. So I want them to feel included. And sometimes there aren't that many people that are in those other categories when I'm speaking, but when they see that slide, they
Yeah,
they feel, okay, you know what? He sees me. He
right,
sees me. And that's what the audience wants. Like every audience wants to be seen. New speakers tend to look at the front row, right? The people sitting in the front row because you're nervous and your friends came and sat in the front row. So that's what you do. And that's good. But reality is everybody wants to know that you
right.
see them, everybody there.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think that one of the issues is people think once they've got their topic down that one size will fit all kind of. And you've certainly haven't minced your words about you might want to rethink that. I was asking about the customs, et cetera, because I remember speaking to a Japanese group once,
Mhm.
and you were talking about the cards that they were giving.
Yeah.
They gave me gifts. And I was, I guess, a little embarrassed, and I wasn't prepared for it because I didn't do my homework. And what was my instinct? Well, put it away as quickly as possible and
Mm.
don't make anything of it.
Right.
Which was, now I'm not. I kind of knew it later, but
Open the
Mildly
gift.
disrespectful.
Right. Open the gift. They gave you a
Right,
gift. Open the
right,
gift. They want to see your reaction. Right. Again, I didn't know this before.
right.
We used to live in a community that had a very large, it was actually one of the biggest tourist attractions in New York State, something called Woodbury Commons, which is an outdoor outlet mall, but it's got all the high-end stores. And people literally would take buses and limos from New York City to come up 70 miles outside of to the Hudson Valley. And they had to teach the locals how to do business with this international audience. So if you went into a high-end store, there was a little silver tray by the cash register, and the customer would put their credit card or the money on the tray. You would take that off the tray. You would do your transaction. You would put the change or the receipt onto the tray. You didn't hand it to them. That was considered disrespectful. Again, someone gives you a gift. You thank them. You open the gift. They want to see, right? Again, but yet these are the things you could find out. But listen, you're going to trip on some of them. Some people will be gracious and understand that you don't understand, right? Other people might be offended, right? Like taking your shoes off, right?
Right.
Taking your shoes out. We have a lot of neighbor. We live in a very diverse community here. It's an over 55 community, but very, very diverse. We're about 8 miles from Princeton University, so there's and a lot of my neighbors will come in and immediately go taking their shoes off. Now we don't take our shoes off in the house, but they're and some we're telling me no, it's okay, and a lot of them take them off anyway because they just won't wear shoes in the house. It's
Right.
just that's their culture.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I first time I went to Kuala Lumpur, and I was again didn't do my homework really. I mentioned something about being a left-handed person, and they said, "Oh, we don't have left-handed people in Kuala Lumpur." And I went to my. Thankfully, I didn't argue it. I mean, in my head, I was like, "That's impossible." But
Yeah.
I did many about 5 or 6 sessions, and one of them was for 500 people. It was sort of an open national session, and they had them in perfect rows, so I could walk by each row and see. And there was not a left-handed person. There were probably a few people that were stuttering and twitching
Yeah. Yeah.
from being forced. But the second point, they took me out to an Indian restaurant one of the nights, and you know what comes next? They said, as a favor to us, please do not eat with your left
Your
hand.
left hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And but
It's
you know,
considered unclean. It's
it's
considered unclean.
right.
Yeah. We
And
won't get into why.
won't get into why, but unclean and so therefore disrespectful a little bit. So
Right.
those are the type of things. Thankfully, if you have a guide, you have some help there. Okay,
Right.
I got one and a half more questions for you. And one of them deals with pricing, believe it or not,
Okay.
because we get certain rates here in the U.S.
Hmm.
and sometimes speakers can see if we're not being repped by a bureau, a little bit of sticker shock. What's your reaction to terms of pricing something when you go overseas or to Europe or wherever?
So for my business, I have a very simple thing. This is my rate for the day.
Hmm.
And if I'm going to go overseas, the first question that I ask myself is, do I want to go to that place?
Hmm.
Have I ever been to that place? That's the second question, right? And if first question is I would like to go there, and second is I've never been there, my rate becomes a little bit more malleable in terms of maybe I'll do 2 days instead of one, or maybe I'll say, you give me a few nights of hotel so I can stick around more or whatever. And I'm a little bit less about that. First time I spoke in South America, I had never been to South America. I didn't know if I'd ever go back to South America. So I spoke for much less than my regular rate. All my travel and all that stuff was paid for. But I ended up going through Panama and seeing the Panama Canal and presenting in Spanish in Panama and then going to Uruguay and getting taken around there. And it was wonderful. And it's there's value, and value comes in different forms. Now, there's other places where I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And the answer is not that my rate got higher. The answer is no. Because if I don't want to go, I don't want to go.
Got it.
Now, I will say the first time I spoke in India, I didn't want to go. I was going to be speaking in Dubai, and my client also had business in India, and he said, "Yeah, listen, let's go to Mumbai also." I said, "I don't want to go. I've seen the movies, right? It's dirty. I don't want to go." He's like, "No, the people are wonderful." I said, "Peter, I don't want to go. I have no desire to go." So we're all booked, we're ready for Dubai, and he's like, "Alan, it's 3.5 hour flight. It's just this little flight. Come on." I was like a little kid. All right, I'll go. Right. So I actually flew directly to Mumbai. We did Mumbai before Dubai because I could fly Newark. At the time, you couldn't fly Newark to Dubai. You could fly to Mumbai. 15 hour, my first time on a 15-hour flight. Actually wrote a third of a book on that flight. We were coming in and they're like, we're making our final approach. I was like, no, I'm in
Right.
such a
I'm on
zone right
fire.
now.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
fire
I'm very
stuck.
prolific in the air
Keep
myself.
keep going.
Yeah.
And I get to Mumbai, and we're in the tuk tuk, and and which is the best way to get around, by the way. And I staying at a hotel which was called the Lotus 5-star Eco Hotel. It was called the Lotus 5-star Eco Hotel. I think there was an exchange rate on the stars. I don't know if I'd call it five. It was nice, but it wasn't Ritz-Carlton or whatever. But then I was at the Hilton to speak, and the hotel was beautiful. And the audience came dressed up, men in suits, women in saris, just beautiful clothing. And I expected them to be quiet and just take it in. And they were engaged and hooting and hollering and laughing and just could not give me any more as an audience. And it was not what I expected. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad. I've been back twice now. One more to Mumbai, once to Bangalore. And the people are just wonderful. They're wonderful. They understand English because they're all bilingual, understand English. Some of them more than that because it's Hindi, it's Urdu, it's all the different dialects. So that was a good lesson for me that maybe it's okay to go. If you know people that are telling you, hey, something, there you go. Now, when I spoke in Colombia, I reached out to my speaker community. I said, hey, Colombia, American, okay. And they said, where are you going? I said, Cartagena. They said, go, just go, go. Don't even think about it. Go. Bogota, stay with a local. At the time, Cali, Medellin, you probably don't want to be there. Again, wonderful. If you ask me, Rob, my favorite venue I've spoken in, it was a opera house in the old city in Cartagena. Just imagine being on the stage of La Scala. It was amazing, just beautiful. Again, glad I went. But if it had been Medellin or Cali, I probably would have said no, right?
Yeah.
I, as a Jewish American, I have no desire to speak in Saudi Arabia, right? I
Right.
have no. Somebody just asked me if I wanted to go to Jordan. I was like, really, I don't think so. Not right now.
Right.
I don't think this is the time to do that. So there were things there, but sometimes it's no. But if the answer is yes, then I'm going to do my homework and I'm going to
Right.
make sure the slides are right. Another thing you could do with AI now is take your slides, save them as a PDF, upload them to AI, and say, go through here. I'm going to this country. Is there anything in here that is a red flag?
Mm.
And if you're using ChatGPT, you can ask it to use its cynical personality to poke holes and say, tell me what's wrong with this if I'm speaking in fill in the blank country. It's something I was doing manually, but now I'll do that. Did I miss a phone number? Did I miss a whatever? And I've had it say, hey, color, COLOUR,
Right.
right? Uh, strategize, S, not Z, right? Things like that, and it'll
Right.
find us. Another good use of AI.
Good. All right. I want to tap back on pricing. We'll wrap
Mhm.
ourselves up here. I would just want to give you my perspective on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I when I give it to you, you're my subject matter expert, so I don't mind you saying pretty good, but Rob, add this and take that out. So this is me doing a
Yeah.
check. I find when I go out of the country that there's a little bit of sticker shock from at least I speak a lot in the financial industry. That's an industry that will
Yeah.
pay pretty nice numbers.
Yeah.
So, rather than saying no, what I typically try and do, because I want to visit that country,
Mhm.
is bundle. So
Okay.
when I mentioned Kuala Lumpur, which is one of my favorite places I've ever been to in my life, love the people, love the trip. We really had a number that wasn't working. And then
Mhm.
we started talking when they realized, okay, well, how about we do this, train that, we'll put one on nationally. You can use that money to fund the training for the bank that we're going to do.
Right.
All of a sudden, I had a much larger number, was there for an extended period of time,
Mhm.
and got to travel and see. And the company they're very happy when they
Right.
when they can afford you and you're trying to work with them. One other quick one.
Yeah.
Sweden, I remember in my contract, I had a company that was doing pretty well.
Mhm.
But I had a business class ticket and I priced it up and it was just so high.
Yeah.
And I just looked at it, I went, I just can't. 10,000 versus about. $800.
Right.
So I let my client know. I said, "Good news, you already made some money on this trip.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'm in a premier zone at United. I'll have an aisle on an exit row.
Right.
Let's have a great talk." That company never forgot that.
Yeah.
They upgraded me to a completely different hotel. They had been
Mhm.
using international speakers, never forgot it, extended the business relationship a little bit. So I think there's some sensitivity to pricing that at least
Yeah.
I try and deploy. In the US, I'm a little tougher, but I do want to get there. So,
Right. But again, we have a conscience and you're looking
right,
800 versus 10,000. You're like, I, when I spoke in Australia, I remember it was the first or the second time that I spoke there, I fully expected coach ticket and I would use miles to upgrade. And the client came back and said, no, no, the boss said business class. And it was like $8,000 in a round trip. And I was like, you sure? You sure? And they said, yeah, no, 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 we're sure. I said, okay, okay, that's fine.
right.
Right.
Well, as Howard Stern would say, you've said it all, and then some. I was smiling when you mentioned Australia. I wouldn't have backed myself out of business class if I was flying to Australia.
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah.
longer flight. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, and maybe a little bit about your podcast.
Sure. So my website is my name, alanberg.com, ALANBERG.com. My podcast is called Wedding Business Solutions, but it's really just about business and life and stuff like that. So I have a guest on every other week, and then I do every Wednesday, but mine are short. Mine are 5 to 10 minutes. It's just here's a bite, here's a thought. I did one the other day called She Said the Quiet Part Out Loud because I had seen something where again, my industry, a bride had said, I just ghosted somebody and here is why. I said, she just said it, right? Here you, and I just get on for 8 minutes and I talk about
Right.
it. I have my own AI alter ego called Ask Alan Anything, which is trained on my 13 books and hundreds of podcasts. And it's a way for people, you're writing an email going, yeah, I wonder what Alan would say. So they go to
What would
whatwouldalansay.com.
Alan say? All right.
Whatwouldalansay.com. And there you go. But that's what I do. Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. You can see that at podcast.alanberg.com.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you being on the show and cleaning this up. Listen, it's exciting to go on the road, but
Yeah.
boy, there's a couple of potholes there we could step into, and we all learned the second time, but at what cost? So I really appreciate you looking out for us on that
Yeah.
one. I wish you nothing but success, and I'm grateful you spent some time with me today. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.